Good morning. I'm Christeena T Jose, and I'll be your host for this event. Welcome to the workshop on academic writing organized by the Department of English, St. Thomas College, Thrissur, to support the undergraduate students in their endeavor to develop writing skills. This workshop is an interactive platform, and students would be assisted to do specific exercises to help them gain confidence in writing academic prose. This workshop will surely enable them to master the features of academic writing. Today, we are joined by highly experienced and skilled faculty from Chennai, Dr. Deepesh C from Shiv Nadar University, and Dr. Mathew from Sivasubramaniya Nadar College. Welcome, Dr. Deepesh and Dr. Cherry. Now, may I cordially invite Dr. Anto Thomas, Head of the Department of English, to deliver the welcome address. Sir.
A warm good morning to you all. I am indeed very happy that my colleagues in the Department of English, Professors Christeena T Jose, Biju M.A, Dr. M.J. Viju, and Mr. Bibin Joseph, they are organizing this seminar on academic writing, which is a down-to-write workshop that enables our students to prepare themselves for the academic writing skills, which are essential for any graduate student. At the international level, we do notice that a course in academic writings is the fundamental course that is necessary for admission to any graduate studies. We are indeed very pleased to have eminent young scholarly experts who will guide our students to the practical level of an outcome-based workshop on academic writing skills. On this occasion, my duty is to welcome all who are online. First of all, I would like to thank the management of St. Thomas College and welcome our principal, Dr. Joy KL, who has been an enthusiastic and earnest solace of guidance to all the endeavors that we undertake here as a department in the college. A hearty welcome to you, sir, to this online workshop on academic writing skills. Next, I would like to welcome the experts who have kindly consented to come over online to be with our students, to lead them to guide them and to lead them to academic excellence in future. I'm sure that the work they do today is something that will be materialized not just today, it will be materialized all throughout the academic career of these young students. So it's something of foremost importance. First of all, I would like to welcome Dr. Deepesh Chandrasekharan, as Assistant Professor of English, Shiv Nadar University, Chennai. He is an eminent scholar of the young generation, and I would like to wholeheartedly welcome you, sir, online to this academic writing workshop that you have agreed, consented to guide our students. A hearty welcome to you, sir. Next, I would like to welcome Dr. Mathew Philipose, Assistant Professor of English at Sri Sivasubramaniya Nadar College of Engineering, Chennai. Dr. Mathew Philipose also is an equally eminent intellectual stalwart like Dr. Deepesh C. And we are very proud to have these two intellectuals who will be guiding our students at a very practical level to help them with inculcating and developing their academic writing skills. And of course, academic writing skills involves descriptive, analytic, persuasive and critical skills, and I am sure that these two great academicians will help our students to persevere to be good scholars in future. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Jerry Mathew Philipose. Now, I would like to welcome my colleagues, the organizers of this program. I do welcome Ms. Christeena T Jose, who has organized the program along with Mr. Biju M.A. and the supporting team of our energetic, enthusiastic, vibrant Dr. M.J. Viju, and always cooperating and supporting Mr. Bibin Joseph. I also welcome the Dean of Arts and Humanities, Dr. Sanil Raj, who has always been a colleague who supports all the academic endeavors in the department. A hearty welcome to Dr. C.S. Biju, my senior colleague, and to Reverend Dr. Martin Columbrath, the vice principal and the bursar of the college, whose fiscal assistance is greatly appreciated and acknowledged for the support of this particular program that we organize for the first year undergraduate students who belong to the second semester UG batch. We are happy to have all the students of the second semester undergraduate studies of the St. Thomas College, Autonomous Thrissur. All the students are earnestly encouraged to be online because this is a fundamental preparatory course that will assist them very much. A hearty welcome to all the stakeholders, all the undergraduate students who will be actively participating in this workshop. I welcome all the others, all eminent dignitaries who are online too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Anto Thomas, for your hearty welcome. I'm pleased to invite Dr. Joy K.L., Principal, St. Thomas College, for the presidential address. Over to you, sir.
Warm good morning to all. Dr. Jerry Mathew Philipose, Dr. Deepesh C, Dr. Anto Thomas, Christeena T Jose, and colleagues of the Department of English and dear students. It is greatly appreciated that the Department of English has come up to organize a web training session to our first year UG students on academic writings. The knowledge on the realization of academic writing is essential for students because on one way or other, they have to make use of such writings, and the proper method and system of such reproductions are to be mastered by a student so that the presentation shall get better credit. Various ways of presentations and essential feature of writings have to be known well by a student. I hope this web session will be quite helpful to our students. May I make use of this opportunity to thank and congratulate the Department of English for their rich and praiseworthy endeavor in guiding our students. Let me wish all our students who are ready to receive the guidelines given all the best. Thanking and wishing all the best to one and all. I remain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. Academic writing has become an increasingly important part of higher education, and it is imperative that students learn the nuances of it. So let's get started without much ado. Dr. Deepesh and Dr. Cherry, the floor is all yours.
Yes. Thank you very much, madam, and everybody for introducing us and for setting the stage about the importance of academic writing. I invite Dr. Cherry Mathew to start, and then we'll take turns and go about this workshop. Over to you, Dr. Cherry.
Thank you, Dr. Deepesh. So, good morning, everyone who are watching us participating in this webinar session, workshop session on academic writing. Can we have the slide also on the screen? Thank you. So we have named this as Write to Read Better, Read to Write Better. So you can see that on top of it, there is an instruction which says you can ask a question. So if you go to that particular site, and then you'll be able to ask question, your host will help you in sharing the links with you. So the outline is like this. We will start with a short introduction, and then we will do an exercise, a warm-up exercise on identifying academic and non-academic writing. We'll be also talking about the definition as well as the 10 characteristics. You might have seen the program outline, which mentions very clearly like what are the you will be going to discuss 10 characteristics, so that will also be discussed. There is a segment on coder and power. I'm not going to expand them. You have to wait till that slide comes to understand what coder and power are. Finally, we'll have a word of caution. The Q&A, in case there are questions, we'll have some time at the end also in order to have this Q&A session. Right. So let's begin with a Google form thing. So, sir, can you just share this link with them? So you might have got a link, which when you click, will open a page like this, which will have, which is asking a very simple question. Do you know how to respond using Google Forms? And there are only two options there, yes and no. You can click on that, and we'll see the live results also here. So when you participate, we can see, oh, great, we have already got 8 responses. And yeah, we can see that there's only one person so far has mentioned that they don't know how to use Google Forms to respond. The others have all responded. And so far we have got 50 responses. Why we are using this at the beginning is as part of the workshop, we are planning to use Google Forms, Mentimeter, etc., in order to make this workshop as interactive as possible. So we'll be using the Google Form quite extensively, as well as the Menti. So the links will be shared with you, just as has happened just now. So let's get back to the presentation. Thank you so much. So overwhelmingly, we can see that the students of St. Thomas College, Thrissur, can use Google Forms to respond to the and participate. Right. So let's move to the next slide. So these are you have seen the title of this workshop is Read to Write Better, Write to Read Better. So which means, we have a principle, or we had this notion in our mind when we used the this title for this workshop. I'll just read these two quotes. The first one is from Annie Dillard and book The Writing Life. I quote, "Why are we reading if note and hope of beauty laid bare, life heightened and its deepest mystery probed? Can the writer isolate and vivify all in experience that most deeply engages our intellects and our hearts? Can the writer renew our hope for literary forms? Why are we reading if not in hope that the writer will magnify and dramatize our days, will illuminate and inspire us with wisdom, courage, and the possibility of meaningfulness, and will press upon our minds the deepest mysteries so we may feel again their majesty and power?" So you can see, the power of writing. What can writers do? Good writers do, right, to their readers. So this is the benchmark which we could all aspire to. But on the other hand, to become a good writer, we believe, along with Stephen Grasham, that you need to be a good reader. So I quote, "Writing style does not come from writing or from direct instruction, but from reading." So we don't have any magic capsule or wand to help you become good writers. You need to write and you need to get feedback. All that we could do is to show you a path forward. So if you're not a good reader, you might find it difficult to be a good writer. So please keep that in mind. I hope the students from your college are all good readers so that their journey to become good writers is meaningful. I'll now transfer the session to Dr. Deepesh. Deepesh sir, can you take over?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Cherry, for setting the stage and introducing to us the idea that reading and writing go hand in hand, and that it's not as if writing can happen in isolation. Now, what I mean by what is written on this slide about, you can easily identify the person on the right? That is Usain Bolt, the famous sprinter, the famous athlete. He was asked once that, you just ran for 10 seconds in the 100-meter dash. And just for those 10 seconds, Usain Bolt gets so much accolades, wins so many accolades, so many millions of dollars, so many sponsorships, so much success just for those 10 seconds. Usain Bolt smiled and said, "You see only those 10 seconds that I ran on the track, but you didn't see the hours and hours and hours that have gone behind those 10 seconds as training or as preparation for those final 10 seconds, right?" So it's the same thing about writing. So like Dr. Cherry just pointed out, it's not as if writing happens magically. He quoted Stephen Grasham, who said that, good writing is based on reading in a big way. So I want to allude to that fact. So when you say, what does it take to be good at writing, even if it means academic writing, can you take, is it just merely a result of talent? I cannot be a good writer because I don't have the talent for it. This X and Y are great writers because they are born with that talent. Does it take merely talent, or is it a result of a lot of effort? So needless to say, it is also a result of a lot of effort that goes into this. Most successful writers, like Dr. Cherry just pointed out in those quotations, most successful writers firmly believe that one must be a good reader before you become a good writer. So even as we are preparing to be good at academic writing, we must remember that we must also have enough reading to back up that kind of writing, to know what are the templates that people use. And if you look at writing in India generally, you see that, there is a tendency that, we depend a lot on writing. From the beginning, we have been writing in all our tests and exams. They are based on writing. So we think that writing is crucial. We know it. But then we tend to use stock answers which are driven by what are available in guidebooks and so on. We use a certain template and we fit in our answers into the template. We don't cultivate writing independently or writing reasonably creatively within the framework of writing. So what we must aim at when we deal with academic writing is not only to follow the points that are mentioned as, this is the template with which we must write, but we must also keep in mind that we should have our own voice or our own slant or our own character in our writing. So those kinds of things are what is important when we deal with academic writing. That's the point I wanted to make. Over to you, Dr. Cherry.
Thank you, Deepesh sir. Moving forward, there are, we need to identify, we need to see whether we can differentiate between academic writing and non-academic writing. There could be something in academic writing that tells us that this is how it should look like. And when we read something else, we might tell, okay, this is not academic writing. Or, so let's do an exercise. So can the link be shared? So once you get the link, when you click on the link, it will open a page which is similar to this, Academic Writing Workshop 2, which will once again ask you, so we have given you 4 links, which will take you to 4 different types of text. What we would like you to do is to read the text and decide for yourself whether it belongs to academic writing or non-academic writing. We know it will take a little while for you to start answering because you need to read. And for the benefit of people who are joining from far and wide, we'll just open these links for you. The first one, it says Introduction to Pitch, Pitch Names and Notation. There are 4 paragraphs given. I'll just read the first paragraph for the benefit of people who join, who are not able to click on it. Playing any note on a piano produces a fixed sound. The sound gradually fades away, but it does not go up or down. Music is made up from fixed sound such as this. And then it goes on about talking about the pitch as it is. So you have to decide whether it belongs to academic writing or non-academic writing. Let's click on the second link. This says, this paper examines interaction in written text through the interplay between the notions of text, averall, and attribution. And there is a quotation, Sinclair, 1988. Text averall is evidenced in the unmarked parts of the text where the utterances are assumed to be attributed to the author. And it goes on like that. So when you quickly read, I don't want you to spend a lot of time reading this. You can make a choice. And then the third one, you can see there is Sony DAV S888, ultra cool DVD home cinema system. And the price, everything is given there. And you can save £70 if you buy it now from that particular seller. So do you think it's academic or non-academic? That's again one thing about reading. We don't spend so much time reading, trying to understand everything. We generally skim in order to get a feel of what we are reading. So when we tell reading, we mean you have to be flexible with your reading approaches. You cannot tell that I'm going to read from the beginning till the end. I want to read and understand every word that is given over there. It's not going to work that way. You have to be flexible and you have to understand the situation and read accordingly. And the last one, it looks like a letter. Dear John, how are you? Everything is here is fine. I'm very happy at the moment because my football team won last week, and it goes on and signed, that's all. Best wishes to you and your family. So these are the 4 texts which are given to you. Let's see. Oh, 104 responses we've already got. And yeah, the first one, people consider it to be the academic writing, the pitch one, which is this introduction to pitch, which many students have rightly identified as the academic writing. So the second one, people again have identified it correctly as academic writing. It's an article from a journal article. Let's look at the third one. Yes, students have correctly identified it has known academic writing. It's an advertisement. And the last one, the personal letter. Yes, once again, students have identified it correctly. Majority of students have identified it correctly as known academic writing. So let's get back to the slide. So I hope, you have understood, so there is something which would have helped you to identify this. So that is exactly what we are going to talk about next. And I request Deepesh sir to take over from here.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Cherry. I think it ties in beautifully that many of you have got it absolutely right when you identified journal article and a textbook kind of writing as academic writing, and the letter and the advertisement as non-academic writing. Now, what made you find that this is academic writing and this is not academic writing, right? So we'll just do a small poll. Can I request sir to share the next link, which is the Menti link? Yeah, you can click on menti.com. All of you can click on menti.com and enter the code 5397907, as you can see on the screen. Or if you have a QR scanner, you can simply scan the QR code and use that to enter the poll. On the poll itself, you will be asked a question. Just answer the question with a word that you think is appropriate to identify as a characteristic of academic writing. What word for you signifies as a characteristic of academic writing? Depending on the kind of language you use or whatever you think is appropriate, please fill in a word. Let's see if we have a few responses. Yeah, some of you have already started writing. Formal comes across as a huge response for most of you. The scientific language, formal way of explanation. Yeah, you write any word that signifies for you, a word or words, term that signifies for you characteristic or as a characteristic of academic writing. I think formal by far is the most important word that you think is important. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, let's move on to the next part of the question, which is, now you identified a characteristic of academic writing. Now I would like you to give me a loose definition of what is academic writing. So if the question is academic writing can be defined as, how will you put that down in a line? Just write a line of what you think academic writing is. How can you define it? formal language, many of you. Formal work. Writing related to academics, formal way of writing. Writing a paragraph based on a specific topic, formal way of explanation. Analysis of a topic and interpretation of the same in an orderly manner. Okay. So formal is the word which stands out for all of you, mostly, I think. Okay. Yeah. Well structured. Okay. Formal, structured, backed up by evidence. Very good. The purpose is to aid the reader's understanding. The formal tone and style, not complex. Okay, that's interesting. Does not require the use of long sentences and complicated. Objectivity, very interesting. Well structured, yes. For the purpose of study. Okay. Formal and definite. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so you have given me a few technical way of explaining things. Structured, backed up by evidence, all that. Nice. Okay, let's go back to our slide now. Let me see if we can, if I can provide a loose definition of academic writing. Now, we involve in academic writing in all our languages. We write articles in Malayalam, we write in English, we write in all the languages that we know. There is an argument that the way you write in academic context in English may be different from the way you write in academic context in Malayalam or in Hindi or in Chinese or in Japanese. Now, in that explanation, in that context, people say that how you read and write in academic context is specific to the culture that you belong to. How do you write in academic writing in English it can be quite different from the way you do it in other languages, right? So in English, generally, we go in a linear fashion, right? We don't go round and round. We don't go cyclically. We go linearly. So there is one central point or theme that we focus on in academic writing, and every component of academic writing, that the product that we have, contributes in some way to the main line of the argument, and digressions or repetitions are generally avoided. So we come matter of factly, we come to the point, we may give examples, we may substantiate our point and so on, but the whole argument is linear, right? So that's the usual template when we deal with academic writing in English. So we must remember that we are not writing in Malayalam, we are writing in English. When we are writing in English, we follow a certain template because that's how it's done in English. So it's very culture specific. Second, some of you wrote in the Menti poll that we had, language is objective, not very subjective. We might have subjective elements. We might say it's my stance or my belief and so on, but we put it in an objective way, not as a extremely subjective, opinionated way. Third, of course, it is more to inform the objective, not to entertain, right? And there is what is called the standard written form. I'm not a great votary of the use of the word standards, but then we must remember, just like we dress up in a formal dress when we wear formal costumes or formal clothes when we attend an interview or face somebody for the first time in a formal context. In the same way, when we write academic language or when we involve in academic writing, we couch it in standard written form. We must remember that. Now, let me go to the next activity. There are several words that came across as well structured and evidence based, and somebody said no use of complex language, right? Can I have the next link, please? Yeah, when you click on the next link that you can see in your chat here, in the comment, you can see that there are characteristics on the left and there are names of those characteristics on the right. There are 10 characteristics that usually refer to, I mean, that are usually considered important when you're writing, when you're involved in writing, academic writing in English, right? So this is a link to that. You just, what you have to do is look at what is on your left and look at what is on the right, and try and drag those terms to its correct place. Once you do it, yeah, just like this, you can just drag from the right to wherever you think is correct. For example, hedging. Uh, if you think that hedging uh, is to demonstrate, no, it's yeah, if it's a concept of, I mean, whatever you, where you think is appropriate, you put it in that place. I mean, let me see the link once again to. Yeah. Once you finish that, you can click on the link below which says check, and it will tell you how many you got right. Right? We are just complexity. Yes, somebody in the Menti poll said complexity is not required. Well, we will come to it. We will discuss it in a little detail, but complexity is important because you are not trying to, you're not using a lay person's language. You're not using the informal context of the bus stand or a railway station. You're using a context of academic writing where there is academic becomes an important aspect, right? So in that sense, using lexical more lexical words than grammatical words and those kinds of things become important. So complexity is one of the important features that we must keep in mind, right? We'll also introduce all of these terms shortly, but I just like you to see for yourself what those terms are and what they mean, and try and see if you can get them matched correctly. I hope that you've checked it and seen how accurate you were vis-a-vis what we think is the way in which you have to do it. Shall I just assume that you have done it? Can you write on chat if you have checked your answers and got them right? How many did you get them right? Did you get right? Can you write on chat? How many you got right? Yeah. You can see that we're matching it to just show you how it works. Complexity is lexically dense language. We use that kind of language to make sure that it's done. We avoid colloquial words, so we use formal language. Accuracy is an important aspect. Precision, sorry, is an important aspect. To be precise when you use information, dates, or figures, that's an important aspect. Emphasis on the information that you want to give in the arguments you want rather than you, so being objective. Making it clear to your reader how various parts of the text are related, and also acknowledging the sources. Explicitness. Be accurate in your use of vocabulary and grammar. Not, I mean, the nuance, the difference between phonetics and phonemics, for example, is important, right? So in that sense, one needs to be accurate. So that's what is meant by accuracy. Then the concept of cautious language, cautious language, making decisions about your stance on a particular subject or the strengths of the claims that you're making. That is what is meant by the word hedging. Then demonstrate an understanding of the source text, provide evidence and justification for any claims that you make. Again, that is that's definitely when you have to take responsibility for whatever you're writing. Flows easily from one section to the other in a logical fashion. That is how we understand, organize how the text is organized. And of course, much research and evaluation has to happen. So there has to be a specific purpose and plan, and so there it has to be well planned. All right. So I hand over to Dr. Cherry to take it out from here. Fantastic. Dr. Cherry.
Thank you, Deepesh sir. So I hope, you got a bird's view, an overview of the 10 characteristics of the academic writing which we were discussing. We are going to pick up a few and discuss them in detail. The first one we would like to focus is precision. Being precise or being accurate. See, when you are academic writing, the focus of the academic writing, you cannot talk about anything and everything under the sun. You need to be precise, and your language cannot beat around the bush. Right? And you're all familiar with the expression beating around the bush. So if I want to tell you something, I need to be direct rather than going round and round. So that is one feature of the academic writing, which to be precise. And we are going to do an activity, an exercise, which is going to make us understand, what this is all about. So the next link, please. So when you click on this link, something like this will open, which talks about. And by the way, you might be wondering, why we have used this shortened form, ACRI, ACWRI. We will tell you about that at the end. But we might have guessed it correctly that it's a short form of academic writing, and there's a reason for us to use it in this particular fashion. So please remember, if we forget, to ask us at the end, why are we using ACWRI in this fashion? So if you have clicked, you will get these questions, which says replace the highlighted expressions with one of the options given to make it more precise for academic purposes. And we have highlighted the expression in double inverted commas. I'll read out the first one. Chemists had attempted to synthesize quinine for the previous, quote, many years, but all they had achieved was to discover the extreme complexity of the problem. Here the problem is, this can be passed off in an informal writing or conversation. Many years, how many years I've been living? Many years. But the moment it becomes academic, moment it becomes formal, you need to be specific. So we have given you 4 options there. Out of these 4 options, which one will you choose? Which one is specific? Which one is precise? Is it several years? Again, several does not talk about a number. Ages, many previous ages, years, doesn't sound at all good. Light years, yeah, it sounds so good, but light years, again, we don't know. We don't have an exact figure. So the best option would be 100. I hope you have understood. Instead of mentioning many years, you can use that specific, the precise number 100 in order to answer. Let's see, how many of you have answered this so far. 29 have responded. And let's see your answers. Yep. Many have, for the first one, out of the 37 people, still people are answering. Many have gone for the several again without thinking that this is imprecise. It does not give us a number. Several can be any number, right? And the problem with this relative pronouns are you don't you don't have a number in place. It can be, you can say many people came for the party, and then it can be 2 people, 3 people, it can be 30, it can be 300, 3,000. Did you understand? It can always cover up the actual number. So that's a problem with the expression several. So now slowly people are catching up, and then the 100 is coming up fast. The second one, the volatile oily liquid beta-chloro-beta ethyl sulfide, was first synthesized about 150 years ago. See that, about 150 years ago. So the problem with that is, imagine the same sentence being read 10 years back, 5 years later, right? Depend upon the different timeline. You can read. Whatever you write becomes a record. and that record can be accessed anytime as long as the record is preserved. So whoever is accessing, how will they calculate this about 150 years ago? Are they going to minus from the time in which they are reading this? That's again a little bit confusing. On later in that century, which century are we talking about? So all these ambiguities can be avoided if we use yes, like I mean, you can see the results. Like I mean, even your friends are doing it. You can see that. Like I mean, the correct answer, which is in 1854 and in 1887, is chosen not by many. Like I mean, that's the that's again, like I mean, tells you, like I mean, how you have to be careful when you have to choose, when you have to be precise in your academic writing. The problem with the mid 19th century, late 19th century, etc., like I mean, it's again, you're talking about periods where when you have in mind, what you have in mind is a specific date. Wherever you can give specific dates, use them rather than, like I mean, giving these kind of vague expressions. And look at the last one, it is quite long. How long is quite long, right? Like I mean, so that's a question. Like I mean, maybe after this session people may ask, like I mean, oh, it was a long session. How long is long? Like I mean, so you have to be specific in order to help your readers understand what do you have in mind. So people, I mean, largely have given approximately a foot. Again, the problem is with the word approximately. Approximate, it's not even a foot. Like I mean, if it's a foot, like I mean, it's a different story. You have a measurement for the foot, but here what you have is approximately. That's a problematic thing there. So that is why the precise part, yeah, the precise part has to. So the 11.9 inches, which makes it very specific, isn't it? Like I mean, it is 11.9 inches long. That's it. Like I mean, in scientific writing and academic writing, numbers matter. Even a fraction of a number is going to make a big difference in the result. You might have experienced that in your laboratories, right? So I hope, like I mean, this concept of being precise, wherever possible, whenever you're writing, if you're able to use figures, if you're able to use specific years, use that rather than, I mean, using these kind of vague expressions. So let me invite back my colleague, Dr. Deepesh, back to the session.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa.
So
yeah, am I audible now? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
See, now, when you traditionally think about academic writing, precision plays a major role, right? So you have to give your accurate numbers. You have to give a precise expression for what you want to say. We discussed when we did the characteristics, we discussed the difference between phonetics and phonemics, right? So phonemic chart versus phonetic chart. How do you differentiate between sounds which broadly exist in the language and then the nuances of those sounds, allophonic sounds, and so on and so forth? So you use the difference between a seminar and a conference, the difference between, so those kinds of nuanced expressions you have to use accurately when you are dealing in with academic context, right? So that is one aspect. Now, Teresa has just pointed out to you that one must use precise language which in which there is no scope for ambiguity. So instead of saying, you know, the mid 20th century or several years ago, be precise as much as you can, so that there is no lurking doubt in the reader's mind about what exactly is the figure that the writer is talking about, and so on, right? Now, the other thing is hedging. Now, one has to strike a balance between the need to be accurate and the need to be the need to put across your subjective element or your slant, your sense of what you're writing or what you're talking about. That is also an important aspect, right? So people in the past used to argue that one must not color it with one's own subjectivity in any way, but today most scholars who deal with academic writing, they propound, they recommend that we must involve in some sort of hedging. Now, hedging broadly means that you involve in you use expressions which have some suggestion about how to go about it. Now you can see that there is a link to a Google form which has been shared. Please click on that link, and when you see the form on hedging, you'll find this kind of this page. Of course, put your email address, and then there is a statement that you have. There are two statements for each question. You have to choose the statement which you think is including hedging. Now, for example, if the first example, let me give it as an example. Nowadays, urinary symptoms are of a lesser order. There is nothing where it suggests what I think about it. It makes a plain statement. It doesn't say anything about what I think or what I feel. But what is the second statement saying? Nowadays, the urinary symptoms seem to be of a lesser order. Now, when you write seem to be, you're actually putting in your opinion in some sense. What is your opinion? It appears that they are of a lesser order. It is your opinion. It is not a fact, right? So you color what is mentioned as fact, not simply as a collection of facts. So suppose you're writing an article, you're not simply bunging in lots of facts from here and there and then, right. You are including facts which you think are relevant, but you are also making a comment on what you think about those facts. Are those facts relevant? Do you agree with them completely? Does it appear that they're right? Does it appear that they're wrong? Those kinds of elements, right? So in the first question, where there are two statements, in the first sentence, there is no coloring of that factual statement with your opinion. But in the second one, when you say seem to be of a lesser order, you're actually coloring it by saying it appears that this is how it is, right? So you're making an opinion. That part of that word, that expression is the use of hedging, right? So we recommend that you use hedging. Please do the same for the rest of the three statements. Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, first one, in spite of my talking about it, many of you have chosen the first one, but yeah, it's the second one where there is hedging. Yes. Second one is the one where there's hedging. Yeah. What about the second statement? In the second statement, there's no difficulty in explaining how a structure such as an eye or a feather contributes to survival. The difficulty is in thinking of a series of steps by which it could have arisen. And the second sentence, by which it arose. It arose, plain statement of fact. There is no coloring. But in the first sentence, by which it could have arisen, you're talking about the possibility of something happening. And so that first sentence is the one where there is hedging, not the second sentence where there is hedging. Now let's go to the third example. What is the third example? Oh, sorry. Second example is the experiment work. Sorry. There is experiment work shows that a week or 10 days may not be long enough, and a fortnight to 3 weeks is probably the best theoretical period. Yes. Again, in this example, probably is an adverbial which I'm adding to it to hedge, to express my opinion. In the second sentence, there is no hedging. It's the best theoretical period. So, is the best theoretical period is a statement which shows that there is so much confidence. Now, if the writer is in some doubt, we're not sure, then you simply hedge it by saying it's probably the best. It's an opinion. You're not taking complete responsibility because you don't have ample evidence to show that it is flawlessly true. It's definitely true. So you hedge it by saying probably. That is an opinion you are allowed to make in academic writing because you are allowed to do that much hedging. In the same way, we discussed the third one already. Is the first sentence which has hedging. Now, what about the fourth one? For example, it is possible to see that in January, this person weighed 60.8 kilos for 8 days. Vis-a-vis that, the second sentence is, for example, in January, this person weighed so much for 8 days. So the second sentence, there is absolutely nothing about the writer's opinion. It's simply a statement of fact. This is what it is. This person weighed this much for 8 days. It's a statement of fact. But when you say it is possible to see, the writer is putting across his or her idea that one must notice that it is possible to see at that point. It is not as if it went unnoticed, right? So the hedging happens in several ways. One must strike a balance between maintaining precision or objectivity in your writing and putting in your slant or putting in your this one as example, your opinion as example. Yeah, back to Charissa.
Thank you, Deepesh sir. Let's move forward. Like, I mean, so I don't know how many of you might have wondered, like, I mean, how precise, and the hedging are in a way contradictory, right, to each other. Like, I mean, but the point to remember is wherever it's possible for you to be precise, like, I mean, be precise, and wherever you think you're making a very strong statement, like, I mean, which cannot be accounted for, hedge. Like, I mean, so you have to have the intellectual modesty, right? Knowledge is evolving, information is evolving. There could be things which can challenge. Like, I mean, so wherever you think you're not very sure about, use the hedging. Moving forward, responsibility part of it. Here, what we have to keep in mind is when we write, we have to be responsible of what we are writing. What does it mean? In school, or like, I mean, in mostly when you're submitting your assignments, etc., what we generally do is, like, I mean, one person will write and the other person, people will just follow that one example. And teachers are also very generous, and then, like, I mean, just overlook the fact that you have, let me use that word, copy the assignment from each other, right? Like, I mean, but the moment it becomes academic, it becomes technical, this is something which is not going to be pardoned, and this is a very serious crime if you copy the ideas of others without giving them any credit. And we have a specific term for it. I hope you might be familiar with it. Can you just put that in the chat box? What does it mean? What word do we use in order to highlight the fact that you have copied someone's idea without giving any credit to them? Yeah, thank you. Vasil Hakim has mentioned it correctly. Plagiarism, right? Like, I mean, so that in academic circle is a very serious crime. Because of which you can even be blacklisted, right? You can put your academic career at stake. And this is going to be, and with the power of AI around, the power of Google and other search engines around, whatever we put, like, I mean, are always tracked. Like, I mean, in the sense, there is always the search engines are crawling through whatever you're writing. So the moment they find it, like, I mean, they will always highlight how much similarity is there between what you have written and what others have written. And Atira has mentioned about copyright. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, if your patents and copyrights, if you think intellectual property rights, and if you think, like, I mean, what you have written is original, genuine, and you don't want others to, I mean, make a copy of it, you patent it, you take a copyright of it. So you have the intellectual property of what you're writing, which many students are a bit unaware of, like, I mean, when it comes to academic writing. So the next point regarding the responsibility is about, like, I mean, making you aware that, like, I mean, you have to be responsible of what you are writing. So then, I mean, you may ask me this question: how am I going to, like, I mean, give credit to others? Like, I mean, how am I going to take idea? Do you mean that I have to come with original ideas always? No, I'm not telling you that. Let us understand that the research is like a stream, right? As an ever-flowing stream. And when you start your writing, you are stepping into something which is flowing. You need to understand where the water has come from, right? Or Google Scholar has this beautiful expression, standing on the shoulders of giants. Like, I mean, there are researchers before you, there are writers before you. You need to understand what they have written. You can take ideas from them and then pitch in such a way that you can tell the reader how your idea is an extension or a different path from what has happened before. That is exactly what people have to do when they have to report on some other's work. There are a couple of techniques for doing this. The first one we are going to discuss is about paraphrasing. And to help us with this the concept of paraphrasing, we have an exercise. But before we go to that, let me just tell you about the difference between summarizing and paraphrasing. So when you summarize something, you make it short. When you give a gist of what others have written, right? Like, I mean, so the length is the focus of there. Like, I mean, make it 1/3, make it half of what we have written. This is summary, right? Which will help you. Whereas paraphrasing, you have taken ideas from others, but you are presenting someone's ideas in your own words. This is what I understood about X or Y or Z's idea. Right? When I read, this is what I have understood. So there are different techniques for doing that. So I hope you have understood the difference between summarizing and paraphrasing. In paraphrasing, there is a lot of you there, right? Like, I mean, you have to use different techniques in order to paraphrase. Can we have the link, please, for this exercise? So when you get the link, when you click on the link, what will happen is you will open a page like this, which has again a few exercise, a few questions, and I can see that, like, I mean, students have given a lot of about plagiarism here, right? Can we share the link for this exercise in the chat? The paraphrasing exercise. So there are, like, I mean, 4 statements there, and I've also given you, if you are doing this on a mobile device, enable auto rotate and hold the phone horizontally for better view of the questions. Otherwise, you may not be able to see all the 4. Right. So these are the 4 questions there. So according to Widdowson, and there is a quote there with a reference. Like, I mean, see, when we say, like, I mean, I'm not, I'm giving credence. So is it paraphrasing scholars' work? Are you citing a secondary source? Are you citing multiple sources? Or are you quoting a scholar directly? These are the 4 ways in which you can take responsibility of others' ideas when you present others' ideas. So let me just see, like, I mean, what you people have responded to these questions. Yes, already we have got 59 responses. Let's see what these responses are. Yes, according to Widdowson, yeah, majority have identified it correctly as quoting a scholar directly. The scholar in focus is Widdowson. The name comes at the front, and the source of the material. Somebody reading your technical writing should be able to go back to the source and then read it in full, like, I mean, if they are interested. So that is the whole purpose of quoting a scholar directly. Let's go, move on to the second one. According to Peters, 1983, evidence from first language acquisition indicates that lexical phrases are learned first as unanalyzed lexical chunks. So here you can see that there is no use of quotation marks. But at the same time, the writer, the scholar, the Peters is mentioned with a reference to the ear also. That is what paraphrasing scholars work. You have used Peters' idea, but not words. See the difference? When you're using quotes, you're using the exact words within quotes. Whereas when you paraphrase, you are using the ideas and not the exact words. That is why we are not using any quotation marks. But at the same time, we know that this is not our idea. This is an idea which we took from Peters. So we are acknowledging the source, and majority have identified it correctly. Let's go to the third one, which is according to Jones, as cited in Smith 1983, page 270, blah, blah. So here you can see, like, I mean, we haven't read, what have we read? Like, I mean, we have read Smith, and within Smith, we have seen Jones. So we have collected, you have identified, you have cited a secondary source correctly, right? You haven't read Jones, but you have read Smith, who has read Jones. Did you understand? It's a bit convoluted kind of thing, but again, you are being honest. You're telling the reader that, see, this is not my idea. I haven't even read the primary source, or maybe I don't have access to it, but I have read the secondary source and I'm giving. I mean, so if someone is interested, they have to go to the secondary and then to the primary. And the last one, paraphrase a number of studies. Then we are given a list of studies which we have referred to, found that you don't know what that is, like I'm just part of a paper. So here you have citing multiple sources. So when you get you have made an inference, you made a statement, and then you are supporting that statement with the use of this a quote like this. So that is what is mentioned by the responsibility idea of it. So when you are writing academic writing, always remember to avoid plagiarism and understand that the plagiarism check has become so robust nowadays that it's very easy to find it. Let me now hand over back to Deepesh sir to continue.
Thank you, Charissa, for bringing up the very important issue of acknowledgements and academic honesty, and also referring to the idea of intellectual humility, that you might have a certain idea of something, and when you come across somebody else whose idea seems more valid or more valuable, you are ready to change your idea on the basis of new learning. That's perfect intellectual humility. And I also I'm also grateful that you referred to the fact that you must be explicit about who is the origin of your source, whether you're quoting somebody directly, you're paraphrasing somebody's idea, you're quoting a secondary source which mentions the primary source, or you're simply using multiple sources in your text. So that's a very, very important idea, which feeds into what we are going to take up next, which is explicitness. So when you talk about academic writing, it's also important to be explicit in two ways. One, make sure you say it explicitly. Who is this idea from? Whose idea is it? That acknowledgement is an important part of explicitness. The other important aspect of explicitness is to show how one idea connects with another. That explicitness is also important in academic writing. So if you're saying two things, you're saying a statement like, people today move into cashless transactions all the time. That is one statement. If you make another statement, a lot of people use digital transactions for these days. Those statements are opposite to each other in meaning, right? You cannot simply bung in those two sentences and leave it like that. You have to connect them. How will you connect them? You say several people use several people use cash transactions today. However, a lot of people are moving to digital transactions. So when you use ideas which are contradictory, you add the signpost word however. In the same way, when you give examples, you make a broad sentence and then say, for example, and you give your examples. So when you say, for example, what you're doing is you're connecting what comes later to what you've already said before, right? So those kinds of signposting elements are important when you do academic writing. Can we have the link to explicitness, please? Now, in this form, Google form, you will have 4 questions, as is our template now. By now, you know that. You have to simply select. There is one word or one expression which is within asterisks, right? So you click, you just look at that word or that expression which is in asterisk, and then go down to the option which it stands for. So in the first instance, you can see that it is a reference to the word however. Is however changing the line of the argument? Is it giving extra information? Is it giving reasons, or is it referring to the ideas that are almost the same? In the second question, what is an asterisk is this was because. In that also you choose which is the correct option. What is its function? Similarly is the third one, and the fourth one is in addition. Yeah, I'll wait and see how many of you have actually negotiated this. I can see only a few responses. Yeah. You just look at the expression which is between asterisks, between those stars. So, however, in the first one, does it give extra information? No. Does it refer to ideas that are almost the same? No. Does it give reasons? No. Does it change the line of argument? Yes. So you say something and then you say something the opposite. That is what it does, right? So you can click on that for that in that way. Yeah, there are some 18 responses as of now, 19. I'll wait for a little while. 25. Okay. Yeah, the first example, let's look at it again. Bristol 167 was to be the largest aircraft ever built in Britain. However, by the end of war, its design had run into difficulties. So you don't expect that to happen. However, that happened. So it changes the line of the argument. So that's the correct answer for that one. The second one, while an earlier generation of writers had noted this feature of the period, it was not until the recent work of Kane Cross that the significance of this outflow was realized. Partly, this was because, when do you use this was because? When you give reasons for something, right? So you're giving reasons. That's why it's, so that's the answer, yes. What about the third one? Marx referred throughout his work to other systems than the capitalist system, especially those which he knew from the history of Europe to have preceded capitalism. Similarly, so are you referring to ideas that are opposite in view, or ideas that are almost the same? So similarly, ideas that are almost the same. He's born into a fourth one. He's born into a family. He marries into a family. He becomes the husband, father of his own family. In addition, he has a definite place of origin. So when you're saying in addition, are you referring to the same idea? No. Are you giving reasons? No. Are you changing the line of argument? No. You're giving extra information about the same thing, right? So those kinds of sequence markers. So when you say firstly, secondly, thirdly, fourthly, fifthly, finally, those kinds of things. Or when you link a statement with something which has already been said, those kinds of signposting is an important aspect of academic writing. That is what we wanted to refer to in this one. Back to Charissa.
Right, thank you, Deepesh sir. Let's move forward, which is talking about the process of writing. When we think of writing, the idea that comes to our mind is that of a product. And many of us write because our teachers want us to write. They give us a question and then we start writing whatever comes to our mind. That's what and for most of us, the writing is limited to the exam halls. Even there, like, I mean, what we are focused is whatever that comes to our mind randomly, we just go on writing as it is. So that is one view of writing as a product. But the view that we would like to express, or we would like to share with you, and we endorse also, is that of process writing as a process. It has got, whatever which has a process has got stages. So what we have in mind is several stages, and we have listed almost 12 stages. Can we have that link for this activity, please? So when you click on the link, you can see that there are there are stages listed for you, and all that you have to do is you have to identify, read, go through all the 12 stages given over there, and start choosing which one could be the first, which could be the second, third, like that, all the 12 stages. So this is important because, I mean, if you're writing and you're not focusing on this this process part of the writing, right, you are doing injustice to the very fact, very process of writing as such. So you have to understand that. And since these questions are to be a bit jumbled for each one of you, like, I mean, you may not be getting it in the same way as you see on the screen, but remember, like, I mean, to go through them one by one. So we have mentioned about drafts, first draft, second draft, etc. You can see on your screen, produce your second draft, write your first draft, organize your piece of work, like, I mean, whatever, even before you start writing, you need to think about that. You have to read the question, you have to understand, think about subject. So there are several things we have listed here before, I mean, as a part of process writing. And many of you might not be even doing, I mean, except the drafting part, the writing part. And the moment you write something, many of us have this feeling that I've written, Now is the job of my teacher. Like, I mean, my teacher asked me to write something, I wrote, and now the teacher should read. Understand, like, I mean, that is a very layman's view of writing. Like, I mean, as students, you should always think of, like, I mean, improving your writing. And how do you improve your writing? By focusing on, like, I mean, these stages, like, I mean, where writing becomes a cyclical process, right? Like, I mean, you start, you're given a topic, you think about it, you collect ideas, you put them together, you choose some ideas, you discard some ideas, you arrange, you organize them, you write, you get some feedback again, like, I mean, based on the feedback, you fine tune this article, you go on doing this. Did you understand? Like, I mean, so, and then finally the second draft. And there are, like, I mean, if you ask your teachers, like, I mean, they might tell you, like, I mean, how many drafts they might have engaged with, like, I mean, when they were writing their dissertations or their thesis, or when they were writing their academic articles. Like, I mean, it's not like, I mean, it's never will be the first draft the best draft, and even the last draft will be still a draft, right? It's not the final product as such. So let's have a quick look at how students have responded to this question. 11 people have already responded. We understand that this is not an easy task. People have to go through these things in order to understand. Right, read the question and understand what you're required to. That is the first one, which many people have given as the sixth stage. This is where you should all begin, right? Rather than going with this, you have to understand your audience. You need to understand their expectations, right, in order to help you. We'll just quickly go through these options. So once you have understood the purpose, the audience, what you're expected to do, what you're required to do, the next thing is think about what you know about the subject, write it down in some way. See, this is something which we often fail to do. Like, I mean, do we ask ourselves, do I know something about this? Right? Can I put it down before I ask or read or look out for materials? Right? Like, I mean, there was this view that, I mean, we were all, our minds are vacant. Like, I mean, there's nothing inside, but that time has gone. Like, I mean, you're all super exposed to the world around you, and you are learning so many things out of the class. There are so many things that you bring to the class. So there are so many things that you already know about the topic, so that you can put it down. And then the third one, once you have put down what you know, you know that there are some gaps in your understanding, you don't understand perfectly, so you go to the library, you go to the internet. Like, I mean, I don't know whether you still go to the library, because you always have a library in your smartphone with the internet. Like, I mean, so you might be referring to that first, right? I mean, even Google, like, I mean, has become a synonym for search, right? Like, I mean, you get information, and then also articles, websites, etc. You keep looking for it. And once you have read, like, I mean, the next thing you have to do is, like, I mean, you also have a reading list, which many of your courses might have suggested, which that also, like, I mean, you have to study them, what your course instructor or the course has mentioned about it. That is important. That is the next stage. So the reading and the library work, as well as what is there in the reading. Again, I mean, once again, we are going back to that idea. You need to read in order to write. Please remember that. Like, I mean, if you think you are a superman or a woman who could write just like that, it's not going to happen that way. Even if you ask all good writers of the world, they will always tell the pain of writing, right? The labor. Like, I mean, it won't happen just like that. You need to struggle in order to become a good writer. So, and in order to become a good writer, they are all good readers as well. They read, like, I mean, and then read others' works, other writers' works, and see, like, I mean, what of their craft they can imbibe. And once you have, like, I mean, make notes on the books and articles, because you have read so many things. You have to put them all together, record the full. This many have identified it correctly as the fifth stage. And once you have them, you have to organize your piece of work. You have the points, you have read enough. Like, I mean, you already know some stuff, you have read enough, you have filled the gap, you put them all together. And then the first draft comes. You can either type or write your first draft based on the blueprint, that which you have with you. The organization is the skeleton, right? Like, I mean, so that's just a skeleton. This is something which many students don't do. Many grown-ups also don't do, right? You are asked to write something, you just start writing. No, please don't do that. Like, I mean, if you want to do justice to what you're writing, do your research, collect points, right, before you sit down to write. And once you've finished your first draft, discuss it informally with friends, classmates, and your teacher if possible. Like, I mean, show it to someone, because you're never likely to find fault with your writing. And many have identified this as 8 as a correct stage. But you can see that, like, I mean, the distribution is more or less, I mean, it's distributed, your choices. Yeah? You're getting confused because maybe you have never thought about the process of writing as such. And once you get some feedback, revise your draft, bearing in mind any comments that were made with in your discussions. Go back to the second step of collecting information, gathering information, etc. Then you produce your second draft. Proofread your draft, because you're likely to, I mean, look for spelling, grammar, vocabulary problems, like, I mean, any ambiguity there, because whenever we read something that we wrote, it's very unlikely that we'll find fault with that. So maybe you have to, that's the reason why we show it to others, right? We are writing not for us. We are not the reader. We are not the intended reader. We are not the intended audience. There's an audience for your writing. So how will they receive it? That you have to know only if, like, I mean, you give it to someone. So you have got all, proofread it, and then you have to produce a final. Though we said final, it's a very arbitrary term. Like, I mean, it's not the final kind of a thing. Then finally check everything. Like, I mean, you can always come back. Like, I mean, you can show it to someone and then get some feedback. And if you're very serious about fine-tuning it, perfection is always an idea which we can all aspire to be, right? Like, I mean, so you can go on, I mean, fine-tuning it, but somewhere we have to tell enough. Like, I mean, I have done enough justice to what I'm writing, so I'm stopping here. And then, like, I mean, let me just publish it or just give it to someone and be done with it. So these are the 12 stages of writing. I hope, like, I mean, I'll go back to Deepesh sir to continue with this presentation. He'll just talk about coder and power.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. And I noticed that out of 100 and odd in each of those questions, you had about 25 of you getting it right. Obviously, because you have 12 aspects to negotiate, is so difficult. I mean, how do you remember those 12? And, you know, it's very, very... have you heard of the word mnemonics? Have you heard of the word mnemonics? M-N-E-M-O-N-I-C-S. What is mnemonics? Can somebody write that on the chat? M-N-E-M-O-N-I-C-S. Mnemonics. What do you mean by mnemonics? How do you remember the 7 colors of the rainbow? Violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. You remember V-I-B-G-Y-O-R, Vibgyor. You remember Vibgyor? You can remember the 7 colors of the rainbow, right? So that mnemonics makes it mind mapping facts. Okay, those are ways in which you can remember things easily. That's mnemonics. So yeah, Vibgyor is a good example of the use of mnemonics. Now, Teresa talked about the 12 stages of writing. Now, how do you negotiate those 12 stages? I mean, very, very difficult to sort of, you know, talk so much about which comes first. And then if you get one wrong, then you got the entire thing wrong, right? So very difficult. Now, you look at these 2 words that I've put on the screen, coder or power, right? So those are acronyms for those 12 stages compressed into 5 stages. So if you look at what Teresa was talking about, the first thing that you have to do before you write anything is to think about what is it that okay, could it be on the previous slide, Teresa? Yeah. What is it that It is not there. Okay, no problem. I'll just go on with just the title. Yeah. What is it that makes? I mean, what are the stages that we go in writing, right? So if you look at the letters of coda and power, they represent 5 stages of writing with different names. The last 2 names are the same, but the first 3 are different, just the naming. But it's the same process. Teresa was referring to the fact that one involves in a process when you're writing. When I was in grade 11, my English teacher would give us our answer scripts after every test, and he would make a comment about everybody, about each person when he gave away our scripts, right? So when when it was time for me to get my script, he looked at my script and he said, Deepesh, he just looks at the heavens above and he starts writing the answers. So I thought, oh, maybe he's appreciating my quality of writing, and he's talking about how great a writer I am. Or he was probably talking about writing as my writing as something which is very very divine, right? Maybe he thought like that. But then I paid some attention to what he was saying, and I checked with him, and he said, what I mean by when I said that is that you just look up and wait for answers to come, and then you start writing. You don't plan your answers. That's what he meant, right? It took me a while to understand that my English teacher was telling me in school that you need to plan your answers. Now, I'm a teacher myself, and I grew up to become a teacher. We need to remember that it's not a one-shot thing. We're not great writers that, even the greatest of writers, they write several drafts, like Teresa was mentioning earlier, right? So I get students to carve a niche on the answer script wherever, to put a box somewhere and do these stages as much as they can before they actually write the final answer. What is C in coda or P in power? Collect your ideas. So you brainstorm and think about, okay, what is it that I have to write now? Let me think of all possible ideas that I think must go into my answer. In whichever order, doesn't matter. You just put all the ideas down on paper. Brainstorm. So collect all your ideas, or pull in all your ideas that if you're using power, right? Second, you decide, okay, these are the ideas. I need to organize those ideas. Now, which idea is going into which paragraph? Is it an introductory idea? Is it an idea about causes? Is it an idea about effects? So how am I going to organize these ideas is the second step in both the acronyms. The third step is to actually start writing. And when you start writing, it's not the final writing. It's always a draft, right? So even when you are submitting a PhD, people say it's the submission of the draft which was ready on the submission date. They don't say it's a final book. It's never a final, there is no finality in academic writing. You're always thinking, you're always fine-tuning your ideas and your thoughts. So in that sense, you're always in the draft stage. So you just submit the product as it is on the date of the submission, or when you decide to submit, based on the date, not about finality. So it's always a draft. But anyway, when you write, after you collect your ideas and you organize the ideas, you draft your writing, right? If it's a letter, or it's an essay, or it's an article, or it's a paragraph, you draft your work. Fourth, you edit them, right? So like Sir suggested in the previous slide, you take opinions of your peers, people who are with you, take opinions of your teachers, you take opinions of people who are good writers themselves. Edit your draft. By editing, I don't mean proofreading. I mean to completely overhaul the way in which ideas are organized, your inclusion of ideas itself, and those kinds of aspects. And then finally, you revise your draft. So you collect your ideas, you organize them, okay, which is going to go into which paragraph. Then you draft your writing, you edit them, and finally you revise them. So these are the 5 stages you can easily negotiate. If I give you a Google form about which is what, and first, this should be easily manageable. So when you had 12 stages to think about, you research and you do this and that and all, 12 stages was a little mind-boggling. But when you just have to have 5 things to do when you're writing, it's very easy, very negotiable. Try and see if you can do this negotiation while you are writing. Even if you're writing for the test or an exam, you must be able to negotiate that kind of writing when you are writing. So over back to Teresa.
So thank you, Deepesh sir. Thank you, Deepesh sir. So you have seen, like, I mean, the coder and the power, like, I mean, so let's move forward. Like, I mean, we are coming to the fag end of our workshop, where we would like to introduce you to social media. Right. You all are familiar with Shashi Tharoor, right? Like, I mean, the MP from Thiruvananthapuram, and whose English, like, I mean, we always admire. Like, I mean, so we admire because, like, I mean, he comes up with language which people won't understand that easily, right? So this is so Chetan Bhagat wrote an article for the Times of India, and our Tharoorji happened to read it, and he tweeted this: superb piece by @ Chetan Bhagat on all that ails our country and what we should do about it. Chetan's great virtue is the simplicity and directness of his writing. His message is clear, and I hope his fans and the government act on it. So he retweeted it, amplifying Chetan's idea. And he used very simple, you can see that, very un-Tharoorian, right? Like a kind of language, which kind of made our Chetan Bhagat a little unhappy. So he replied, like, I mean, to Shashi Tharoor, so I appreciate the fact that you took note of my piece and read it and then wrote something. Like, I mean, but I will be happy, like, I mean, if you are going to say something in your language, right? So he said, okay, I still can't, you can see that in the inset, Chetan Bhagat writes, I still can't get over this. The Shashi Tharoor, so yeah, it has a brand, the Shashi Tharoor. We generally don't use the definite article with people, but here Chetan Bhagat, another writer, he is admiring Shashi Tharoor, and then said the Shashi Tharoor has praised Chetan Bhagat. He didn't, I mean, he's being modest, he didn't use the Chetan Bhagat, he says Chetan Bhagat. I am floating, right? Just one request, sir. Next time, can you use some big words to praise me, like ones that only you can do? Superb is nice, but a big one would really make my day. And look at what Tharoorji has done. He has written back, sure, Chetan Bhagat, it's clear you are not sesquipedalian, right? See, like, I mean, the effort which a common man should take in order to read, like, I mean, nor given to rodomontade. Your ideas are unembellished with tortuous convolutions and expressed without ostentation. I appreciate the limpid perspicacity of today's column. Oh my God, like, I mean, what he wrote in very simple language here, right? Like, I mean, the great virtues, the simplicity and directness and all, he made it into something like this, right? This is something which we, I mean, even on request, please don't do this in your academic writing, right? I mean, don't trouble your reader by using all these technical jargons or esoteric words which people don't use in everyday language. What happens is, like, I mean, by using such words, you kind of, like, I mean, make it difficult for the readers to understand what you mean. And in that process, your message or idea which you would want to convey is also lost. People are already lost looking at the meaning of what you have written, and they can't, like, by the time they make out, like, I mean, your idea dies. And what gets the highlight is not the idea, but the word. Did you understand? Like, I mean, so when you are writing something, you want the ideas to be noted by others, appreciated, welcomed, thought of by others, not the words that carry the ideas. So we have got a few examples here. So I hope the mentee has come to you. So this, when you click on it, like, I mean, you can join this thing. It says scintillate, scintillate, asteroid, minific, right? So what, this is again a terrorism, right? As Deepesh sir would have called it. Like, I mean, so this is, oh, can you send the link, please, for this activity? Okay. I hope you have got, right. Christeena ma'am, can you ensure that the students have got the link for this activity where they could write what this scintillate? Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so when you come to this, so what could be the scintillate asteroid minific could mean? I mean, what is this all about? Any idea, anyone? I hope, like, I mean, the page will load faster. Even in the chat, like, I mean, you can, yes, you can write it in the comments. It's a link is going to take a little more while. Yes, okay, we just close this link. Right, we'll come back to the academic writing. Yes, so oh, okay, people are telling they have got the wrong link. They've got, yeah, like, I mean, so this one is the, by the time they give you this example, I mean, I will just see scintillate, asteroid minific is a terrorism for, yes, I got it right, twinkle twinkle little star, minific, little, right, asteroid, I mean, a star as such. We have one more there, like, I mean, I'll just start that thing. So we have got three links which should come up there. Right, Deepesh sir, can you just take over for a minute where I fix this in the background? Yeah, can you just bring in Deepesh sir for a minute, please?
Yeah. Okay. Now on the screen, you can see that there are two. This one, but anyway, when I remember when we did the first Menti, and you were asked what are the features of academic writing. One of you had actually written that complexity must be avoided, right? Now, we also talked about how we need to balance between precision and hedging. In the same way, we must balance between complexity and language, which can be followed by our audience, our intended reader. There's a balance which we must strike. We must use complex language to the extent that there must be a difference between the words which mean slightly differently. We must choose words to suit our nuance, but we must not fall into the trap of complexity just for complexity's sake. Highfalutin language which has no, which is not comprehensible in the first place is problematic, right? So what do you think it means when you say the stylus is more potent than the dirk? The stylus, could it be a reference to this?
By the way, whoever is hosting this event, I mean, all the 3 links are available in the private chat to be shared with the students. Can you just share? Yeah, now. Yes,
Pen
thank
is
you.
more powerful than the sword. Pen is mightier than the sword. Exactly. Thank you. The pen is mightier than the sword. So these are 2 examples we wanted to do before we get into the actual activity. I request Jerry sir, have you sorted it out, sir?
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
the link has already been sent to them.
Yeah.
So they
Thank
should
you.
be able to.
Thank you.
And the second thing is also now running.
Yeah.
Deepesh sir, would you like to continue? I mean, I'll just sort this out a bit.
Yes. So in the second link, you can see that we are referring to members of an avian species of identical plumage congregating. Members of an avian species of identical avian species, reference to let's see if you got the answers. I think some issue
With
again,
the
wrong
connection, I
link.
don't know.
Tulasi writes it's a wrong link. Yeah, there are 3 links. You can click on all of them. One we've already done here. See if you can click on the other 2.
Yeah, people are already.
Birds of a feather flock together. Yes, some of you have got that right. Some of you have called it a penguin and all that, but yeah, birds of a feather flock together. Members of an avian species of identical plumage congregate, right? So, Tharurian way of saying something as simple as birds of a feather flock together.
Shall we go to the next?
Yes, sir. It is fruitless to become lachrymose over precipitately departed lacteal fluids. Lacteal fluids, lactose. That's the clue, I think. It is fruitless to become lachrymose over precipitately departed. Obviously, this is from a proverb that we always use.
Yeah.
Don't cry over spilt milk. Perfect. Yes. Don't cry over spilt milk. Yeah. Or it's no use crying over spilt milk. Perfect. Thank you. We have one more.
Yeah, one more. Yeah.
This is interesting. A plethora of individuals with expertise in culinary techniques vitiate the portable concoction produced by steeping certain comestibles. Oh my goodness me. What do you think that could be a reference to? Culinary, that's the clue, that's the word. Plethora of individuals expertise in culinary techniques. People who cook. Yes. So, what could that be a reference to? Could it
I think
be
even the internet has gone tired of carrying our workshop for such a long time.
Yeah, and you can write it on chat as well. I mean,
Yeah,
if
that's it.
It is unwieldy. It shouldn't. It's actually a very interesting platform or medium. But like all things internet, sometimes those things can go for a toss.
Yeah, people have already.
Yes.
Right. Very good.
Too many cooks spoil the broth. Perfect. Too many cooks spoil the broth. Yes. Many chefs spoil the broth. Too many cooks spoil the broth. Thank you, Hari Krishnan. Thank you. Yeah, and for all of you who answered that, individuals who make their abode in vitreous edifices would be advised to refrain from catapulting projectiles. That's vitreous edifices, catapulting projectiles. Catapulting, hurling, throwing.
No idea.
Yeah, no idea. Thank you. That's being very honest. Academic honesty. Yeah. People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Perfect. Thank you. Yes. So handing it back to Teresa. The bottom line is that we must avoid complicated language just for the use of complicated language. We must choose simplicity over complexity, especially when you know that using jargon, using complex language will simply confuse your reader. So you must always keep these three things in mind. What's your purpose of writing? What is the subject matter that you're writing? And who is the audience, right? So once you keep these three lighthouses in your mind, you go into the sea, you'll never get lost, right? So keep those three things in mind. Shall we move on, Teresa, to the question and answer session?
Yes, I mean, I think the host will be able to help us with this.
Yes. Were there any questions on the slide that you shared, the presentation mode? No.
Not many, actually.
So if there are any questions, please do feel free to ask us the questions and we'll take them up.
So this is the link, like I mean, which you could use in order to ask us questions if you have any. I'll post it in the chat box so that they can share it.
Can you
all.
post it on the chat box? On private chat.
I've just posted in the private chat, and the host will be able. I hope, like I mean, meanwhile, I mean, while they process this, how do you feel about the session? Did you find it useful? Did we bore you?
Yeah, agree. I think Teresa mentioned it. Acri is the hashtag that Teresa is a big time Twitter fanatic, if I may use that slightly negatively connotated expression. He's a Twitter exponent. He uses Twitter like fish in water. On Twitter, there's a context of using hashtags. So the hashtag for academic writing is ACRI. So that's why we've used ACRI throughout the presentation. That's why we used ACRI on purpose. As you can see on the page, ACRI is a hashtag which you just write the hashtag, you get a whole lot of tweets about academic writing. Anything you want to add, Teresa?
Oh, sir, like I mean, so what we thought was, I mean, you are all on different social media platforms, and you could actually use these social media platforms to leverage your academic writing also. Many of you might be using the social media in order to consume. What we actually recommend is a balance of both. Like I mean, you participate in the platforms, you make the most of the platforms that you are part of, and I'm sure, like I mean, Facebook will have academic writing for groups, Instagram will have academic writing hashtags, like I mean, so find out, like I mean, and learn. I mean, there's always a possibility of learning around. So that's something which
so you have to strike a balance between socializing and professionally gaining from social media sites. So there must be a balance. It must not simply be waiting to get maximum number of likes and comments and so on. It's not merely that. That's fine, but you must also use it to leverage, as Teresa said, leverage what resources are available on these sites. And Twitter is an amazing platform for, especially, for professional development, for gaining scholarship in any field. Yeah, many of you saying it's useful and informative. Thank you. If you have any questions or any queries, please do write them as well.
Can you please explain hedging once more? Anonymous is asked.
Yes. Hedging is, now if I say, for example, scholars have argued blah blah blah, right? Scholars have argued blah 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 is a very vacuous. It's empty. It doesn't mean anything. But there are two ways in which I can make it more clear. It says some scholars have argued, and I put in bracket which scholars, which year, cite the articles that I'm referring to. That's one way of hedging, some scholars. The other is, instead of saying X has said this thing and it's completely wrong, you can say X has argued that blah blah blah, whereas Y has said that this is the way, right? So you're giving two opposing viewpoints. When you hedge, you're taking a stance. You're saying, well, I agree more with this person than with that person, right? That kind of an opinion making, that kind of making it clear what your stance is a very important aspect of academic writing. It's not like Wikipedia, where you say, okay, this one said this one said this one said this one said this. I'm not saying anything. Wikipedia doesn't say anything, right? It's not like that. When you are writing an article, you are saying, this is what the scholars before me have said. This is my view about what these people have said. So you don't have to completely agree with somebody. You don't have to completely debunk what somebody has said. You can say, this person has said this. To this extent, I agree with this person. However, I think this point he has got it wrong, or she has got it wrong, right? So that kind of opinion that you put into your academic writing, that's called hedging. Hedging usually when you're speaking is, to say, if you ask me, in my opinion, well, and all that, you're not saying anything. They're just empty expressions which have probably no great meaning, and you're sort of buffering what you're saying with those expressions. In speech, you do it all the time. So people in the past used to say, when you're involving in academic writing, you must not do hedging. Just make it very matter of factly and so on. But today we've moved on from that position and say hedging, responsible hedging, is very, very important. You don't do sledging. I don't know, I'm sorry using a cricketing term. You don't do sledging, that, name calling and all that, but you hedge by just politely putting in what your opinion is. For example, if you're using reporting verbs, right? You say X argues that, X says that, X suggests that. Suggests is like, you're saying, you may agree, you may not agree. But if you say, that kind of leveraging is what we are talking about when we're talking about hedging. Any other questions or queries that we have? We are nearing the end of the 2 hours that have been allotted to us. I hope you're not encroaching into anything else that you have to do.
Can you please tell a short summary of all topics taken? I think we can move to the next slide.
Can you have the last slide, Teresa? Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. Sona Anto has important things to say. Wash hands, wash hands, wash hands.
Yes, sir. You can take it over here.
Yes. So at first we introduced what academic writing is. We looked at several texts, and we identified what are the features which define academic articles, academic writing vis-a-vis non-academic writing, and we saw the definition about objectivity and about preciseness, and when you're writing academic writing in English, how there is a logical order and so on and so forth. And we saw the 10 characteristics: hedging, explicitness, complexity, and all that, which are important aspects of. You have the links to all of them. You can use those links to go back to those things. Then we shortened those 12 characteristics, that were 12 ways in which 12 parts of the process of writing into 5. And so collect your ideas, organize them, draft it, edit it, and revise it. And then at last, we also talked about how we must, in our enthusiasm to use complicated language, we must not overdo it, like some of us would blame Shashi Tharoor for, using words which are probably not so common in use. But he would argue that he is using a word which captures the nuance very beautifully and so on. You must rush to the dictionary each time Shashi Tharoor puts out a tweet. So we said that we must use the word of caution. We must use all these features in moderation, making sure that we keep the audience, the purpose, and the subject in mind. Thank you.
And well, all those who have participated might have got a copy of your submissions, the Google Form submissions. So that will also give you some idea of what we have covered in this workshop. Let me just go to the last slide and say thank you. I'll just click on these two things. In case you would like to find us
connect with us and interact in the future, this is where you could find us. Deepesh sir is on Twitter as at the rate Deepesh C 1975. And I'm on Twitter as at the rate Cherry MP. So thank you very much. Thank you to the organizing team.
There is a question Atira has asked. Is it necessary to use complex words to consider a particular sentence as much standardized one? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I think what you're trying to say is it necessary to use complex words vis-a-vis simple options? No, if your simple words make it amply clear, use simple words. If your words need to be complicated in order to make your point more precise, use the complex words. Don't choose complexity for complexity's sake. That's the point. Thank you.
Oh, I think we'll go back to the host. Christeena ma'am, we can take over.
Thank you, Dr. Cherry and Dr. Deepesh. Your presentation was well detailed, and you were able to, elucidate the basic concepts of academic writing. So thanks a lot for joining in from Chennai. It was pretty hectic, I know, but you were able to, somehow get us a full-fledged view of academic writing. Thanks a lot. So let me place on record our gratitude and appreciation for being so kind to accept our invitation. And, I believe our students have hugely benefited from your class. Let me also extend our gratitude to the management of our institution for their support. I'm also delighted that the students were persistent in giving their responses. They might have been listening from their mobile phones, but still, I guess, almost 150 and 170 students were able to give their responses. And that was something that moved us all over here, because we never thought that people would be able to complete the exercises. So right from the start, they were enthusiastic, and they went on doing the exercises. So we are very happy with the student response. Thanks a lot. I guess you have recognized the importance of the topic. So thank you all, my dear friends, my dear students. Dr. Deepesh, Dr. Cherry, thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.